This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Well, let's jump into it, man. It's hashtag Ask Arn Anything. We went to Twitter and let you guys ask us all the questions you want. You can participate in our next one. We do these every other week. So 2 weeks from now, you'll be able to ask Arn anything again. You can do that by following us on Twitter at The Arn Show. Arn, let's jump into it. Great friend of the show, Joel Wood, wants to know, I know you probably don't keep up with current WWE too much with all the success of AEW, but what are your thoughts on Drew McIntyre and him as WWE champion? Do you think he could be their next guy the way Roman Reigns has been and the way John Cena was before?
Sure I do. Drew's got it all. He looks the part. He's matured. He's paid his dues. He's been around the world to learn his craft. He's came back to WWE with a very mature look, very mature outlook, and just the way he views the business. The only thing I hate about this entire run that he's having is we don't have the fans to show him in the arena how they feel about it, because I think he would be getting a very good reception. Fans appreciate guys that have to work for the things they get in this business. They get it, and they understand that he's paid his dues, and I just hope that they stay the course with Drew and don't get antsy and nervous and just make one of those knee-jerk reactions that they normally do, and just shut his water off before he gets a chance to show what his value is.
I'm really glad that you pointed that out, because I do feel like this is perhaps the most frustrating time ever to be a professional wrestler. You know, we've often heard the phrase from guys from your generation and before, where they would say things like, call it in the ring. And underneath the surface, what that sentence really means is, hey, what are the fans digging? Let's give them a little more of that. What are they not digging? Let's give him a little less of that. But without that response from the crowd, you kind of don't know. It's got to feel like you're just going through this blind, not just from an in-ring performer standpoint, but perhaps even from a quote unquote office standpoint. The way you would measure whether or not something was working is audience response. And when there is no response, that's got to be difficult, not just in the ring, but running the business as well, right?
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I have nothing to compare it to other than the first week that I actually trained in the wrestling business, and it was just in the back of a furniture store, and it was Ted Allen who was training me, and Tony Zane and David McGee, just a few of us, like 3 or 4 of us in there, and we're taking bumps, and there's no adrenaline rush. There's no music. There's no fans. There's no types of outside motivation whatsoever. And those bumps hurt. Every single one of them hurt. I can only imagine with the high impact stuff they do today, coming down that ramp and sliding in that ring and having a match without the most important thing that you need, adrenaline, because it pilots you completely through every match. And if you don't have any, man, I can only imagine how hard that is.
Yeah, it's got to be very, very difficult. Let's keep it rolling here. Wes has a good question. He says, how does Arn feel the current pandemic would have affected business if this all happened at the height of the Monday Night Wars? Which company does Arn think would have came out on top in the moment? And hypothetically, would it have changed where we are now? So it's a sort of Inception style question. What if this happened in 1998, and instead of Goldberg beating Hulk Hogan in front of a packed Georgia Dome, what would that look like if that was in a pandemic? I mean, some of those matches in particular, it's hard to imagine those matches without a crowd.
You know, that's a nightmare. What if? But I can tell you this, there is nothing more that can be done to put on a wrestling show than is being done right now by AEW. We're doing everything humanly possible to still mix it up, give you an interesting show, have a little bit of crowd, which are just, 10 people can get very loud if they want to on either side of the ring. I don't think it would have mattered what decade, what year, what point in time that this pandemic hit. But I think we're all learning, you know, right now, the timing is it looked like this thing we were going to get a handle on it. And over a weekend or two of not playing by the rules and wearing the mask and doing the distancing and really just staying home, this thing has flared up again. So I mean, it's out of our control. I believe this is something of biblical proportion, and it's one of those deals that if you don't listen to your health officials, it doesn't matter what we try to do as a wrestling company. It doesn't matter how many stars they had back then and how big WrestleMania was and all that. When the government shuts you down to save your life, you better listen. And it doesn't matter when this would have happened, it just so happens it's happening now. It would have shut the business down just like it has.
It's just hard to imagine how different wrestling could have been, without the crowd. What does Vince versus, Austin look like? Well, we've put these guys, not we, but the circumstance has put so many of these talents at such a disadvantage. I'm hopeful things get back to normal sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's changed. I mean, and to be honest with you, if you don't, we have, at AEW, we have done a great job of, guys that could, just small things that everyone's pitched in. Guys that lived in towns that were drivable, whether it be Florida, Atlanta, North Carolina, or driving to avoid flying when it seemed like flying was a big risk. Being jammed in those, and I'm sure it is being jammed on those planes. It's a big risk. Everyone's pitching in. People would stay down there. There's been times when guys have stayed for 3 weeks in the Jacksonville area just so they would be there for the next set of tapings and stuff. Everyone's been sacrificing, and you do all you can do from our side. But the key component to anything that we do is fan reaction. It controls our entire industry. If they like what you're doing, you will flourish. It doesn't matter how good your product is. If the fans don't like it, you're going to die on the vine. And without their reaction, I hope they know and can see how important they are, so that when we get to go back to live events and having crowds, man, they will raise holy hell and have the time of their lives, because that's what controls our business, their reaction.
You got to think the very first time there is a live crowd to see wrestling again, man, people are just going to be out of their heads. It's going to be some of the loudest, rowdiest crowds perhaps in the history of wrestling when things are back to normal.
You better believe it. And I'm going to be just as loud as they are.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.